Well, hiya dragons, and welcome to this instructional video for Lesson 6 Part 4, Government and the Public. The main idea behind this economics lesson is individuals and groups can influence the economic policies of the government. With that in mind, by the end of watching this video, you'll be able to explain how the government determines the public interest, identify the consequences that may result from government promotion of the public interest, and describe how individuals and interest groups can affect government policies. Now that the outcomes for this lesson have been shared with you, let's get started. You have learned that the government develops economic policies to promote the public interest. Determining the public interest and how best to promote it is a complicated process, however. Government economic policies and regulations affect all aspects of production and consumption. Even well-intentioned economic policies can fail to achieve their goals. Fortunately, in a free enterprise system, citizens can act to influence government policies. Individuals can support or protest issues through voting and other forms of political activism. People also can work together in groups to express their interests and concerns. This interaction between the government and citizens ensures that careful attention is paid to the public interest. How do governments identify the public interest? The public interest is based on the collective needs of many people. Sometimes these needs can conflict with personal preferences. Although the government acknowledges the importance of individual choice in the U.S. economy, public interest can sometimes outweigh the wishes of an individual or a specific group. For example, the government may forbid a group of workers to strike if their doing so would endanger the health or safety of the public. The government recognizes that workers must be able to voice their concerns about business practices or working conditions, but believes that in some cases the specific concerns of a particular group may conflict with the public interest as a whole. What are the consequences of policies and regulations related to public interest programs such as AmeriCorps? Such government actions affect all aspects of production, distribution, and consumption, including prices, services, profits, and productivity. Government regulation often causes prices to increase. For example, if the government determines that taxi rides are in the public interest, it may try to ensure a minimum supply of taxis by setting a price floor to keep prices from falling below a certain level. Even if a lower price would increase quantity demanded and bring a higher profit, suppliers cannot set prices of their own choosing. Prices thus tend to be higher when a price floor is in effect. Government regulation also may increase prices indirectly by raising production costs. Suppose that the Petro Plenty chemical factory pumps its waste products into a nearby river. To protect the public's interest in a clean environment, new government rules require Petro Plenty to limit the amount of waste it produces. These regulations require Petro Plenty to introduce new processing techniques that increase the costs of production. The higher costs are passed on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Different types of government regulations can affect services in many different ways. In some cases, regulation can encourage greater levels of service. Suppose that the ViewNow cable television company wants to offer 32 cable channels to subscribers. Local regulations, however, require the cable company to carry 58 channels. In this case, regulations have increased the cable service available to consumers. Other forms of regulation can reduce service. For example, if regulations force producers to supply services at a lower price than they otherwise would, producers may reduce service to avoid losing money. Suppose that a city council determines that affordable transportation is in the public interest. The city council contracts out bus service on the condition that fares cost no more than 25 cents per passenger. The bus company finds, however, that it cannot make a profit at this price and reduces bus service to some areas. Private companies' profits may increase when government regulations result in higher prices and difficult market entry. Generally, however, regulation tends to lower profits. This fact may become most obvious when regulations are lifted. Consider the airline industry. When the elimination of federal regulations on airline service was concluded in 1984, airlines were able to reorganize their flight patterns. By reducing the number of nonstop flights and requiring many passengers to change planes at central connecting locations, some airlines were able to increase their profits dramatically. In some cases, government regulation causes labor productivity to decline. As workers spend more time meeting government regulations instead of producing goods and services, the number of goods and services produced per worker declines. Suppose that Eric and Laura own a fishing boat and employ 5 workers who catch 750 fish per day. Productivity, therefore, can be measured at 150 fish caught per worker per day, or 750 divided by the 5 workers. The government determines that the public interest is best promoted by limiting current fishing to ensure that fish are available both now and in the future. As a result, new government regulations require fishing boat workers to throw back any fish under a certain length. How does the regulation affect productivity? Some of the workers' time now must be spent sorting the fish and throwing back those that do not meet the new size requirement. Either the 5 workers must spend less time fishing in order to sort fish, or Eric and Laura must hire additional workers to sort the fish. Either choice reduces the average number of fish caught per worker, and therefore results in decreased levels of productivity. You have learned how government tries to promote the public interest through regulation. Suppose, however, that people are opposed to these rules. How can individual citizens make their voices heard and try to influence government decisions? In the United States, government regulations can be changed if the public opposes them. Both individuals working alone and groups of people working together can affect the policies and direction of government. One way that individuals can make action is by voting. By electing public officials with an economic philosophy similar to their own, citizens make their economic opinions heard. For example, the victories of President Bill Clinton over his Republican opponents in the 1992 and 1996 elections indicated support for his economic plans. Elected representatives are particularly sensitive to public opinion because they must satisfy voters if they hope to be re-elected. To ensure that you are using your vote wisely, you must become informed about the economy and the candidates. Identify the issues that concern you and find out how each candidate plans to address your interests. For example, what are the candidates' stands on taxes, the minimum wage, and job training? By paying attention to the words and actions of each person running for office, you can determine which one would best represent your views. Another way individuals can influence the government impact on the economy is through political activism. For example, Ralph Nader, one of the most well-known activists in the United States, has worked for more than 50 years to influence government policy and hold corporations accountable for their practices. During the late 1950s, Nader became concerned about the number of fatal car accidents taking place on the nation's highways. As a result, he began to research the connection between legal standards for safety and the way automobiles were designed. Nader believed that many more people would survive car accidents if their vehicles were made crash-worthy, equipped with features such as padded dashboards, seat belts, collapsible steering wheels, and stronger door latches. To publicize the results of his research and to improve government safety regulations, Nader testified before state legislatures in 1965 and published the book Unsafe at Any Speed. Nader soon gained national attention. After getting the media interested in the issue, he persuaded members of Congress to hold hearings on regulations for the auto industry. His actions contributed to passage of the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act of 1966. Many of the automobile safety features we take for granted today were developed and required by law as a result of Nader's car safety crusade. Individuals may also take action collectively as part of interest groups. An interest group is an organization of citizens who work together to achieve their common goals, often by influencing government policy. Interest groups frequently achieve results when individuals acting alone could not. In the United States, interest groups represent diverse ethnic and minority groups, labor unions, farmers, and business people. Some large interest groups, such as those involved with unions, have considerable influence because they represent the votes of millions of members. How do interest groups try to influence economic policy? Interest groups may give money to political campaigns and encourage group members to vote for a particular candidate. In addition to his work as an individual activist, Ralph Nader had also led several interest groups. Nader's Raiders, as the group's members were often called, wrote and published many reports on industrial hazards, pollution, unsafe products, and government neglect of safety laws. These groups' efforts encouraged the creation of several regulatory agencies, including the Environmental Protection Agency, the Occupational Safety and Health Commission, and the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Currently, Nader works for the consumer safety and for the reform of the political system through his interest group, Public Citizen. Most interest groups advance their plans through lobbyists, people hired to express a particular point of view to legislators. Lobbyists research issues and provide lawmakers with valuable information about the impact of upcoming legislation. Lobbying groups affect government policies at all levels of government. How does a lobbyist exert pressure on elected officials? Suppose that Jeff is a lobbyist for the Small Business Owners League. The league provides grants and low-interest loans to new businesses. Jeff arranges a meeting with Rebecca, a candidate for the state legislature, and tells her that the Small Business Owners League will officially support her in the election. Jeff outlines the league's goals and proposes a piece of legislation that will help lower the taxes paid by small businesses. Jeff and other members of the league hope that Rebecca will promote the league's goals if she's elected to the legislature. Rebecca, however, may choose not to support the league's goals and its proposed tax policy once she is elected. So that's the way it is with Lesson 6, Part 4, Government and the Public. At this point, you should know that the government attempts to introduce programs that serve the public interest, but they may conflict with the desires of individual citizens. Economic policy and regulations can influence all aspects of production and consumption, and interest groups can influence both the election and policy making of public officials and government. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to have the entire catalog of economics videos available at your fingertips. Click the subscribe button and then click the follow bell to receive notifications as to when the channel is updated. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in class, Dragons!